Hello, you're watching Tell It Like It Is with public officials, and my name is Kathy Bennick. Well, here we are, just literally 1 week before Christmas. I can't believe it. So I'd like to wish, all of you who are watching a very, very happy, healthy, and peaceful Christmas. And to those of you who have already celebrated Hanukkah, please accept my belated wishes for your happiness, health, and peace as well. Well, we're within days of the start of 2014, which is not to be believed by me at least. And that means that very, very soon New Hampshire state legislators will be returning to Concord for the second part of the biennial session. And we know for sure that there'll be at least, at a minimum, 3 contentious issues for which battle lines have already been drawn. All 3 are tied to the state finances. Now, we all hear a lot about state finances constantly, every legislative session and in between as well. And the fact is that it really does cost a massive amount of money to run our state's government. Do we as private citizens truly understand the state budget? I'm guessing we think we do, but we really don't. Is it true that we really are living within a bare bones budget right now that some charge has really cruelly cut needed programs and services and has reduced the quality of life in New Hampshire and deprived us of wanted and necessary programs? Or is it true that despite of cuts the past couple of years, we still see government waste, we still see inefficiencies, we still see indefensible duplication of services, and we still see our money going to pay for things that are, I think, clearly unnecessary and provide nothing that benefits all of us and does nothing to convince us that our money is indeed being used correctly. On the one hand, we hear that there's not enough money to complete big things like big transportation projects like Interstate 93. But then on the other hand, we see hundreds of thousands of dollars being spent on yet more studies of expanding Massachusetts commuter rail into Nashua and beyond. Clearly not a benefit to the entire state. On the one hand, we hear that we must spend more on education, but then on the other hand, our collective blood pressures spike when we read news accounts about things like the UNH system spending millions of dollars on things like new logos, athletic field lighting, and paying professors for lengthy sabbaticals during which they never enter a classroom. Are things out of whack? Is the current state budget process obsolete and leave plenty of loopholes through which there continues to be unnecessary spending even with all of the budget cuts? Are New Hampshire legislators truly provided with enough legitimate budget information to understand what is truly essential? What is the fluff that works its way into departments and agencies' funding? And what legislators can and should do to force accountability for how our money is spent? Well, my guest today is going to talk about all of that, and he's going to talk about legislation that he has filed for 2014 that is intended to put us on a path to a fiscally sound budget that has no smoke and mirrors. Wouldn't that be a switch? So, my guest today is somebody who I think at least everybody in Bedford knows, and probably the viewers from outside of Bedford have become familiar with him as well. And he is Representative John Cebrowski. He was elected to the New Hampshire House of Representatives in 2008 and was successfully and handily re-elected in both 2010 and 2012. He served on the House Health and Human Services and Elderly Affairs Committee, a mouthful, the House Finance Committee, has served as Vice Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, and also Vice Chairman of the Constitutional Review Committee. John has a degree in electrical engineering from the Rochester Institute of Technology, a degree in industrial design from the Rhode Island School of Design, and also a master's degree in marketing management from the Kellogg School of Northwestern University. He is a proud veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps, where he achieved the rank of captain, and a lot of you may not know that he was an A-4E jet attack pilot. And among his service years, he spent 1960 1965 through 1967 in Vietnam. His professional experience is huge. All kinds of management experience that includes stints at Digital Equipment Corporation, Xerox Corporation, U.S. Surgical Corporation, General Electric Medical Systems, the SolarX Corporation, Sales Builders, Inc., an international consulting firm where he served as president, the Thomas Group, Inc., the Highland Group, and Boston University, where he was director of affiliate network of the BU Corporate Education Center. And he's even been a professor at Southern New Hampshire University, a professor in the School of Business. In addition to his public service as a state legislator, he also has a lot of other public service. He served on the Citizens Democracy Corps, a U.S. agency for international development initiative to help the countries of Eastern and Central Europe and the former Soviet Union countries to transition from centrally planned economies to market-driven economies. And in 1996, he spent 3 months as a management consultant to a Warsaw, Poland, wholesale distributor company of high-tech laboratory equipment. And from 1990 to 1999, he served on the U.S. Department of Commerce, Maryland, D.C., and Virginia District Export Councils, and also served as the chairman of the Virginia Export Assistance Committee. And during that time period, he also organized and led a U.S. environmental trade delegation to Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore. So clearly, lots of management experience. If that's not enough, in his spare time, he teaches and coaches U.S. State Department personnel who support American business people. He teaches and coaches U.S. Commerce Department personnel who are engaged in export counseling, promotion, and support programs. And he's also a regular and frequent featured speaker at the East-West International Trade Conference in Nashville, Tennessee. But I'm not done. He's also a book author and an article writer. His professional articles have appeared in such prestigious professional magazines as Executive Excellence, Sales and Marketing Strategies and News, Journal of Business and Industrial Marketing, Journal of Commerce, International Business, and Marketing News. And I said he was a book publisher, a book author, I should say. In 1998, the hugely well-known firm of Prentice Hall published his book, The Sales Manager's Troubleshooter, and that book was actually named one of the top 10 must-reads of 1998 by Sales and Marketing Management magazine. And in 2001, his book, The Attack of the Mustard Seed, was published. I'd love to know the reason for that title, by the way, which detailed the 10 essentials of success for leading a team or an organization responsible for revenue generation. John and his wife Amanda live in Bedford. I know a lot of you know them. They've been here for 10 years. They're very active in a number of community organizations and events. They've got 4 grown kids and 11 grandchildren. And John is also very active in groups like the Knights of Columbus, the Veterans of Foreign War, the Bedford Men's Club. And for those of you who watched the show that actually is running right now about the Bedford Men's Club Christmas tree, you'll see me talking to him on the day that they were unloading trees when he looked a whole lot different than he looks today. With no further ado, I welcome you, John.
Wow.
I'll tell you, that's a resume.
Wow, that's an introduction. Kathy, thank you so very, very much.
Well, you're very welcome.
Very kind.
I have quite a celebrity here.
No, not really.
And you didn't even bring signed books for me. I can't believe it.
Well, I can do that.
I'm a big reader, and I have a big library.
I can do that for you.
You know, Jerry and I have collected many first edition autographed by the author to us with a date and where they met us and everything. So, I mean, that'd be a great...
No, I love to write.
Yeah, I guess.
Yes,
I guess.
Yeah.
Well, you are one busy guy, and yet you have found time this year, or during 2013, to put together a kind of sweeping piece of legislation called House Bill 657. So the first thing I'd like you to do is tell us about House 657, and then kind of part 2 of that question is, as part of telling us about it, to describe the budget process to us, because as I understand it, the budget process in New Hampshire is a 5-part deal that starts in the odd numbered year and ends halfway through the next even numbered year. So if I'm correct, that would put us right now in December 2013 in phase 2 of 5.
Well, it's just a little bit the
right.
opposite there. It's even odd rather than odd.
Oh, all
rather
right.
Than odd
Well,
even.
see, now
But let me
you
give
got
you
me
a
already.
little bit of
Absolutely.
background, a little bit of background here on the subject. Yes, this stems from my experience on the finance committee,
Okay.
and my business experience leading organizations where I had the responsibility for budget creation and budget management. As you so eloquently said in the opening, the state of New Hampshire is a huge enterprise from a fiscal perspective, and our budget on a biennial basis, total dollars, federal funds, general funds, and other funds, is approximately $10.7 billion.
Billion with a B.
Billion with a B.
That's big bucks.
And out of that, 2.7, approximately 2.7 is the general fund. So that's a lot to manage.
Yes.
And the citizens of Bedford and throughout New Hampshire, frankly, should be very proud of the way that's managed. As I've watched, the budget process unfold in the last few years, I can say I'm generally pleased with the scrutiny that the whole process undergoes, and the participation of the Senate Finance Committee, the House Finance Committee, the Governor, the budget directors, the Office of a Legislative Budget Assistant. Folks, we really should be proud of the way we handle our money, and as you know, we end every 2 years with a balanced budget or something very close to it. Well, one thing that before I get into the bill itself, I should say that our budget process is, as you well said, a five-step process, Kathy, and it begins in the even year, every even year. So in 2014, we will start another cycle, and it begins in the May-June time frame when all the agencies and departments put together their requests for the ensuing 2 years. It is a very time and talent intensive process.
Now, at this point, is this when they put their pie in the sky things in there too?
Well, it's not really, I wouldn't call it pie in the sky, but what they're asked to do by the current statute is create what is called a maintenance budget submission.
Okay.
In other words, put forward to the governor those funds which they believe they will need to provide the same level of service authorized and funded in the preceding fiscal year.
Okay.
Maintenance. How much will it cost the state to maintain what it has been doing, what that department has been doing? In other words, the same old.
Okay.
That's not the most effective way to really make things happen. But I'm going to come back to that because my bill relates to that. But that's the first phase of the project, of the process. The departments and the agencies create that budget and then get it into the governor in the fall. The governor sits down with each agency and department head and then crafts the governor's budget. That also is very time consuming. Takes a lot of time to do. It takes a lot of time to do that. And by February 15th, the governor is required to present that budget to a joint session of the House and the Senate. That begins phase 3. The House Finance Committee then begins to meet with each of the departments and agencies and in great detail, line by line, go through what it is they're asking for and why they're asking for it. Making changes where they want to, or where it's appropriate. It's a lot of give and take. It's an awful lot of work on the part of the departments, or part of the agencies, and part of the Finance Committee. The House Finance Committee then recommends a budget that goes to the full House for a vote. It passes the House It then moves on to the Senate for phase 4. And it starts all over again, basically. And the Senate brings in all the departments and all the agencies, using the governor's budget as a guideline, using what the House has done, and now creates its own version of what it thinks the state budget should be.
Now, at this point, how much does partisan politics play in this whole scenario?
Quite a bit.
Continuous?
Quite a bit, as you would expect. Yes, it really does. After the Senate is done, then, because it never agrees, the House and the Senate will never agree. There's always going to be something.
Guys just can't get along.
There's always going to be something that they don't agree on. So then phase 5, or the 5th step, is a committee of conference, where 3 to 5 members of the House and Senate Finance Committees get together, hammer this thing out, and try and reconcile differences, and then bring it back to both chambers, to the Senate and the House, to finally pass a budget to give to the governor to sign. Now, the governor at this point can sign it if he or she approves it, or can just let it become law by not signing it.
But the governor can't change at that point anything?
No, it's pretty much done at that point.
Okay, but I'm assuming the governor through the whole process is kind of throwing out hints
watching it very carefully. The budget director who reports to the governor is watching this process unfold, and knows exactly what's happening. So the whole process takes about a year from start to finish, because assuming we're going to be starting this again in May, June of 2014, it's not going to reach conclusion until the end of June in 2015.
So when you're talking billions of dollars, it should take a lot of time. Really.
It should. And I come back to my earlier point that we do a very good job, I believe, of really scrutinizing, all the details in here. And those budgets are based on revenue estimates, which both the House and the Senate Ways and Means Committee develop, and we follow those, pretty closely, as you might expect. Republican-led Ways and Means Committee tend to be a little bit more conservative. Democratic ones tend to be, loaded up a little bit more, so to speak. And the governor herself or himself also bases their budget on a revenue estimate.
So having said that,
yes,
how could we see something going on like Governor Hassan putting forth a budget that was, for all intents and purposes, going to be dependent on expanded gambling revenues? That was
an incredibly unusual move on her part, and many of us in the legislature were quite surprised that occurred. This is a very laborious process, and my interest in it, and the bill that we're talking about here, House Bill 657, addresses the first phase, the agency phase of the process, which is called a maintenance budget.
And this is when those, I think last year it was like hundreds of pages, wasn't it? All the different line items.
My gosh, it's a book,
I'm sorry.
Like that. But so what House Bill 657 is attempting to do is to change or modify the culture associated with that first phase, with the agency phase. And rather than having the agencies and departments submit a budget to the governor that will provide the same level of service authorized and funded in the preceding fiscal year, now we're trying to have them provide the cost of providing an improved quality of services as a result of improved department efficiencies. Thus, House Bill 657 is repealing the maintenance budget and putting in place an efficiency budget.
Okay.
Efficiency. So think differently. That the whole idea is to change the thought process, change the basic thought process and the culture of the state. Rather than starting with maintenance, same old, let's think efficiency, ingenuity, innovation. How can we do things better? How can we get more, out of the monies, that we are appropriating? Let's be more creative. Now, it's important to say that there are some departments and agencies who do that.
Already?
Already do that.
Do you want to point to which
Yes,
ones?
yes, I can. I can think of the Department of Motor Vehicles, for example, that has automated a number of its processes. I can think of the Department of Revenue Administration that has done a great job of automating a lot of its processes. I can think of the Department of Transportation that has put in place a management tool called Balanced Scorecard, which enables the department to better identify goals, objectives, measures, and performance associated with how it does its work. So we do see some initiatives come up, but I would characterize them more as ad hoc. It's not systemic. The entire culture of the state government does not yet do that.
Can you identify, or do you want to identify any department or agencies that aren't doing it that really need to be?
No, I don't think I think we need to do that. The one I would like to add to the list I gave you, though, is I was really pleased a couple of years ago to see the judicial branch launch an innovation commission or an innovation committee to try and improve their processes, and I think they did a superb job. In my view, that's a very well managed department of the state. But it's ad hoc, it's sporadic, it's not all over the place. So what House Bill 657 is attempting to do is to raise all of the agencies and all of the departments, of which there are about 45 or 46 that have to submit budgets to the governor.
45, 46, that doesn't seem...
That's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
That's a lot. So let's think a little bit differently about how we go about, running the business. I think it was, if I can just, give you a simple quote from a budget instruction letter that Governor Lynch sent to all departments and agencies back in 2012, and he said, "We must continue to exercise vigilance, ingenuity, and new ways to do more with less," end quote. And that's true. Governor Hassan, this year, I think to her credit, has launched an innovation commission to try and move the state forward to thinking a little bit more creatively about the way it does things and the processes in place, to run the state. So we're starting to move in this direction. So what we've tried to do here with House Bill 657 is take one element of state government, and that is the very first phase of the very important budget process, and change the culture of it, and enable and mandate, frankly, to the departments and agencies that they come forward with better and more useful information to the governor and to both House and Senate Finance. And I can give you some examples of that. Several of the things that the bill asks for from agency and department heads are, what's your mission statement? What are your goals and objectives? Do you have any special or problematic needs in your department? How are you measuring yourself? How do you plan on measuring yourself in the future? Is there an opportunity for any reorganization or restructuring to make the department work a little better or smoother? How about technology? Are there any technology investments you'd like to make in order to improve efficiencies and customer service? How about processes, process innovation? Are there any processes you're working on to try and make things better? What are they? How about staff training and staff development? What can be done there? What are you doing there to try and improve efficiencies in state government? How about barriers to performance? Are there any barriers in terms of existing statutes or existing administrative rules that are getting in the way, that are hindering you from doing what really can be done? All this information, all these things are not being asked for now.
No, they're not comprehensive now.
No. But Kathy, put yourself in the role of being the CEO of a $10.7 billion corporation.
Those questions would be asked.
And if you had 45 departments reporting to you, and you were putting together a budget every couple of years for your corporation that you were going to carry forward to your board of directors, wouldn't it be helpful to you to know answers to those?
Absolutely.
Because you've got decisions to make.
Yeah.
just like the governor has decisions to make,
And legislators.
and the legislators. Where's the best place to put the money? Where's the best place to put the money? So if you start the process with a more useful work product, that this efficiency budget in total being a work product, if you start with the best possible information there at the first step of the budget process, think about how that can cascade throughout step 2, 3, 4, and then on to the committee of conference. Wow!
Yeah,
I mean,
huge.
there is really,
huge
really an opportunity,
Yeah.
for the state to better spend the money that it has available to it. And then here's the kicker. Here's the kicker, because I know what's going to happen, because I've seen this happen in business. There are a lot of little programs and a lot of things that I think all legislators would like to see happen. They would favorite pet projects.
Oh, absolutely.
I've got a couple.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
I've
sure
got
you
a
do.
couple.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, sure.
Now, if everybody operates more efficiently, guess what? You're always going to find a little bit extra on the table that can be used to fund some of those same projects.
Yeah, they're not being funded now.
Or if not fund
Yeah.
them, put
Yeah.
them into the rainy day fund, which
It's a good thing.
is not something that's really healthy
No,
today.
no, I know that. I know that.
So, change the culture of the state.
Now, I'm going to ask you just kind of a practical
Sure.
question. But before I do, I'm so sorry for the
Yes.
hacking I'm doing, the aftermath of the cold. You know, when you get that dry, itchy
Yep.
throat,
Yep.
and least expected to act up, it does. But then the other thing, too, is I don't know if you're hearing it, but I don't want it to divert attention away from what you're saying. I keep hearing a beeping. And I don't know if I'm just picking up on a sound that the audience can hear or not. So I guess if anybody's in the control room who can close the door or whatever, so we're not hearing that beeping, because again, I don't want it to divert attention. Or maybe it's just a beeping in my head.
No, that's not-
maybe the
I'm-
people in outer space are communicating with
I'm not
me.
hearing anything, Kathy.
Oh my God, I'm in
not hearing
trouble.
anything.
Well, my question is this. Now, obviously, it takes a while for any bill to make it through the whole legislative process, and a lot of them don't get
Yes, it
decided
does.
till the
Yes, it does.
waning days.
Right.
And everybody's on tenterhooks
Right.
if it's an important one. But let's take a best case scenario.
Right.
That your bill, hops in there in January, and committees and people and act on it right away. It
Yep.
goes to a House vote. It goes to a Senate vote. It gets the governor's signature. Would that have any impact on the budget that's in the process right now, or will its provisions kick in the next time out when the budget process starts?
The provisions will kick in the next time.
The next time, okay.
And the reason for that is simple. I've worked very, very closely with the Department of Administrative Services on this, and they have a huge role to play in the process.
Sure, yeah.
They have been very, 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 very supportive. But it takes time for them to put in place all the forms and processes and modify the computer system to to make this to make this happen. So it's looking pretty good right now. The bill actually was filed early this year.
And you already had some committee hearings on it, correct?
Yes, and the House Finance Committee retained it in the early spring.
Okay.
Because we were in the midst of working on the budget.
Yes.
We brought it back here in the fall. I made one minor amendment to it, and it passed the House Finance Committee on a bipartisan. This is a bipartisan, 21 to nothing vote.
Wow.
So it will come to.
That doesn't happen often.
Not too often. No, not too often.
No.
But
Really?
great bipartisan support. Governor Hassan, supports it. The Republican leadership supports it. So now it'll go to the full House for a vote early 2014, and then it'll go to
Hopefully. It won't get stalled until late in the session, right?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
And it's likely to come through the House fine, and then it'll go to the Senate.
Okay.
And we'll start the process, and it'll probably do pretty well in the Senate, I would think, and then go to the governor. There is one important element of this that I haven't mentioned yet, which is key. Right now, the way the first stage of the budget process works, there's also a statute in place, excuse me, that asks for a 10% budget reduction budget also, along with
so they have
the
to
agency.
submit two different documents.
A lot of work.
Wow.
A lot. And that second budget.
So then, I mean, in the most simple terms, you're asking the department heads, agency heads to decide which baby it is to throw out with the bathwater?
Yeah, I know. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And,
wow.
And quite frankly, it doesn't get much attention. It doesn't. Just doesn't get much attention. It doesn't get much thought, and there really isn't much value to it because the governor is really working off of that initial submission. Now,
so then why do they even go through that process? I mean, it almost seems like a waste of time if it doesn't make a difference.
We really shouldn't. Now, I'm the guilty party here. Okay,
you are?
I'm the guilty party. Well, in my first
confession time.
I really am. In my first term, when I was in Health and Human Services, being interested in process management and fiscal matters in the budget, I put forward a bill that required the agencies and departments to put forward a bill with a second budget submission of a 3 to 10% reduction. Okay, to try and in an attempt to let's say manage the fiscal affairs of the state a little bit more tightly. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, it failed.
And usually he'll let you
I know.
say that.
I admit, in hindsight, it was a good thing that it failed. But then another legislator brought it back in the ensuing biennium, and it passed. But
Now, did you vote for it that time?
No, I did not.
You did not. Okay.
I did not, because I was in finance. What I learned is that the governor has tremendous flexibility. Has tremendous flexibility in requesting from the departments and agencies what that initial submission should look like. For example, in this past submission, Governor Hassan asked for a 97% submission in the maintenance budget. Okay, she asked for something a little bit less than what was spent in the past. Now that's not unusual because Governor Lynch had done that in the past. Governor Benson had also done that in the past. So there has been this history, if you will, of asking for a reduced level of spending. So there's a good fiscal sense here, but that's a lot more work.
Well,
so what this bill does, what 657 does, it gives the governor the flexibility from the very beginning to ask, or ask each department to come forward with a budget as a percentage of what their previously approved or authorized budget was. And the reason for this is simple, because the needs of different departments and agencies can vary over time.
Well,
things can happen.
Yeah.
So that
Health and Human Services would probably be a prime example.
Health and Human Services, because of things going on in the environment, may need more money, so that the governor can go to the commissioner there and say, Commissioner, I'd like you to come forward with a budget that is 102% or 103% of your previous approved budget. Could go to another department and ask for a little bit less. To another for a little bit more, to another for a little bit less, depending upon the needs that the governor sees, in the state. And you have to remember, the governor, whoever it may be, will be campaigning on different matters that he or she thinks are priorities. So here's an opportunity for the governor to set a target for each department or agency.
Now, I think it's very, very safe to say that your legislation will be supported by Republicans. And you indicated that, thus far there has been a showing of some bipartisan support. Thus far, Governor Hassan seems to be on board with a good part of it.
Oh, she is. Yes.
Do you expect any opposition from either the governor, from any of the Democratic legislators, or from department and agency heads? I mean, what kind of opposition do you think possibly you might get from any of those folks?
That's a good question.
Yeah?
That's a good question.
Not pie in the sky, huh?
No.
All right.
I don't think there'll be any. I don't think there'll be any objection or pushback from the department or agency heads.
You don't?
No, because I started working on this. My gosh, I think about 5 years ago, and I went out and I interviewed, I think about 12 to 15 different department and agency heads, and asked them their opinion, how they felt about the worthiness, the value of that maintenance budget submission. And with only one exception, they weren't happy with the way the process was running. They felt that what they were creating was not a useful work product for the governor or for House and Senate Finance. So I think they're going to be pretty supportive, because now this is going to help them. They're coming forward with information which is going to be more useful for them, more useful for the governor, more useful for the legislature. But where I may get a little bit of pushback is from those legislators, either Republican or Democrat, who may feel that there is still some value in asking for that second 10% reduction budget. There may be a little there.
Now, but I mean, in politics, in government in general, proposed changes can be really hard to bring about, because as the process moves on, people start defending their turfs, and I mean, truthfully, change can mean that some apple carts are going to get toppled.
Right.
So, knowing that that's a potential kind of barrier along the way, what would be the message that you'd be able to convey to the department and agency heads to stay on board and not start, I guess, getting protective of their turf, so to speak?
Well, I think
because, talking about an idea is one thing, but talking about a new reality coming at them like a freight train might be something else.
Well, this is going to be beneficial to them.
Okay.
This is going to be beneficial to them, because now this opens the door for them, so to speak, to come forward with some of their real needs and to document those needs real well. They'll be able to come forward with a stronger story to support why they need X amount of dollars here or X amount of dollars there. So I think they're going to feel pretty good about that.
You don't think they'll feel like they're putting any programs in jeopardy?
No, I don't think so. I think that the change, most of the change, or the challenge of change, is going to lie with the Department of Administrative Services in preparing the forms, the computer system that's used in budget management, in making that happen. But
will there be resistance from those folks?
No, I don't believe. They've been pretty supportive, so far, and they have asked for appropriate time in order to make those changes. That's why, as you asked me earlier, when would this go into effect? This one or the next one? No, let's do it right. Let's do it right. Let's give DAS, the Department of Administrative Services, time to get their act together there. This is going to be...
Now, one of the things now, because again, and I think it can be confusing, because even when I read the legislation, there were a couple of different parts, because legislation are like legal documents anyway. You kind of look at them and you go, huh?
Yeah, I know.
I don't know that everybody really, or could be just me, but I'm thinking that maybe some of the viewers, they're hearing you talk about the maintenance budget versus an efficiency budget, and it can sound a little confusing. So if you, basically were, let's say you were doing a quick radio interview, where you only got the 3 or 4 minutes to bang your point across during the news segment or something. If you had to summarize a maintenance budget and an efficiency budget in just a couple of sentences, what would be the major point that you'd use so that somebody listening would go, aha, I've got it, now I understand the difference between the two of them?
Okay. An efficiency budget features innovation, ingenuity, creativity, better customer service, a better way to do things, a way to get more done with less, more satisfaction for the citizens in New Hampshire.
Okay.
Moving the state forward.
Okay.
Maintenance, same, the way we've always done things, over and over and over again. You know, when I first started working on this, I went to the Office of Legislative Research and I asked, when was the first time this appeared in the New Hampshire statutes, this maintenance idea, this maintenance concept? And it's amazing. It first appeared back in the Herbert Hoover administration.
A few years ago?
Now, that's just a few years ago, right, Kathy?
Yeah.
That's before my time.
Yeah.
I know it's before your time.
Oh, yeah.
Huh? So, don't you really think it's time for the state to really move forward? Mm-hmm. And begin doing things in a more creative, innovative way?
Well, I mean, we have heard, and certainly last year when we were doing the whole series on candidates,
right?
You know, and we had the candidates for governor
right.
and governor's council
right.
and so on and so forth in here, the state senate and such. I mean, over and over and over and over and over again, I would say almost to a number, the hue and cry of everybody was there has to be more efficiency. There has to be
yes.
less duplication
yes.
of
yes.
services within agencies.
Yes.
There has to be some sharing of responsibilities so that we don't have duplicate services
yes.
happening across several departments, or our personnel performing duplicate
right.
duties across several departments and such.
Well, you know what's going to happen here? We get this engine, this innovation, this creativity, this efficiency engine going. These department and agency heads talk to each other.
Oh, I would think they would.
You know,
I would hope they would.
They talk to each other, and you know, they meet regularly. You know, amongst themselves. I believe it is on a monthly basis. I know I've been invited to speak once or twice at one of those meetings. They share. There's a forum there. There's a venue for them to share. So already, and I've seen this. They know, you know, what different you know, agencies, departments are doing. So this is going to feed on itself. There's going to be some synergy here. So if Department of Health and Human Services comes up with an idea or a better way to do something, or to restructure itself, or do something in a more efficient manner, you better believe, you know, that the other department heads are going to catch wind of that. Or the commissioner himself is.
Oh, it would make sense for them to.
Oh.
I mean, if they want to survive and prosper.
Yes.
And this would certainly make sense.
And this is, you know, what we've got here, and what this bill is doing is nothing different than what goes on in the corporate world, in the business world, every day. In order to be successful.
Yeah, and there's a disconnect now between government way of doing things and business way of doing things.
And in order to be successful in the corporate world, and I spent my whole career there. Change is constant. You're always looking for that competitive, advantage. You're always looking for the way to, you know, get more out of what you've got. And we're competing with other states. We're competing with other states, so we've got to make ourselves stronger. So this will help make, I believe, New Hampshire a more attractive destination, you know, for business and industry to come here. So. This is going to feed on itself. A lot of synergy here. A whole new way of thinking. A whole new culture. What can we do new? How can we do this better? You know, and so this is going to work its way down into every organization. Everybody start thinking this way. We're probably not going to get, you know, absolutely tremendous results right off the bat, but it's a process over a period of a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. You watch. Everyone will start to be thinking differently.
How long do you think it would take for this to kind of fully kick in?
2 to 3 years.
2 to 3?
2 to 3 years. Yeah.
But it would happen with the next budget? Begin to start?
Yes. And, you know, again, some of this is already underway, but it's ad hoc.
Well, yeah.
It's not systemic. It's
not
the whole.
But I mean, officially, it would start with the next budget.
Oh, yeah.
To a degree.
Yes. You know,
and then get more refined as it goes along.
Everyone,
is that going to be kind of like a working document, so to speak?
No,
that changes.
No, it's not a working document. It's just the way you run your department or run your agency. Okay. Think creatively. Think out of the box. How can you do this differently? You know, that's been going on to some extent. And again, I come back to the judicial branch and some of the innovations that they've put in place.
Now, just like kind of jumping ahead now, because I like to weave. I like to weave future stories.
Go right ahead.
Say, for instance,
Okay.
that Maggie Hassan was not successful in her reelection campaign and we wound up with a new governor, which,
Right.
you know, obviously elections are wild cards all the time.
Yep.
How much would that affect all this if a brand new governor would have come in?
Probably not much at all.
Not at all?
Because this is in statute now. This is in statute. So the
Okay.
departments and agencies...
So a new governor wouldn't be able to dicker with it as such?
No, the new governor could ask for, you know, a change in legislation or make that happen.
Well, start
but
the
the
whole
new
process
governor,
again, yeah.
any new governor, I would have to believe, would be thrilled with getting better information from the very beginning.
Well,
You know, getting...
would seem to make sense, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, because I think
goals.
it's too much to expect any
Yes.
governor to grasp the whole thing
No.
the first year in. I can't imagine. I mean,
No,
it's too huge.
if I was the governor, I would, you know, knowing how many department
Yeah,
heads and
yeah,
agency heads
yeah,
he's going
it's
to
too
talk
huge.
to, I'd want him to come in with all this information, which I spoke about before. Special needs, metrics, barriers, goals, objectives, reorganization. Help me understand what it is you need. You know, where are your problems? How can I help you? You know, how can I craft this budget better to help make this happen? That's the kind of conversations we want to see our governors have with their agency and department heads, based on this very, very fundamental information. And I've tried to make the bill not overly prescriptive and just ask for basic fundamental information, good management, what I would characterize as management 101 information. So, better work product for everybody. Let me tell you a little story here to make the point. May
Yeah,
I do-
definitely.
may I do
yeah.
that?
Yeah, of course.
In my first term on House Finance, I can remember, you know, one meeting where we had a commissioner in front of the committee, and I asked the commissioner, because I'm truly interested in this particular department and its issues and problems, what are your priorities? Where do you really have, you know, really strong needs? And I asked that question because I would like to help that department and help that commissioner fund whatever it is that he wanted to do. He didn't answer the question. Didn't answer the question.
Why?
To this day, I don't know. Maybe protecting something. I don't know why.
Wow.
But my question was in the context of how can I want to help you. So with House Bill 657, all the departments and agency heads would have to identify and prioritize.
Is that commissioner still a commissioner?
Yes, that commissioner
Really?
is still a commissioner.
And is he
A good commissioner.
Yeah?
Oh yeah. No.
Is he
no.
still
we
as
have,
reticent?
We do have a lot of, you know, we do have a lot of good commissioners. There's no question
Oh
about
yeah.
it.
No, but is that commissioner still as reticent as he was then?
No.
No?
No.
Brought him around?
But now here in the bill, we're asking for, tell me what your special or problematic needs are. And
Yeah.
the bill says they are expected to be few and prioritized. So now think of yourself as being the governor or on a finance committee. My gosh, wouldn't it be helpful to you to know what those special needs are and what your priorities are?
Well, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know?
How much are, I don't know, maybe this is an unfair question. How much are commissioners, agency heads, and such, how much are they motivated by the political part of it, by the partisan politics part of it?
I think they all are, Kathy,
Yeah?
as I witnessed to some extent. Some much more so than others. Some are very, very candid, very honest.
Are they in the majority or minority?
With the finance committee, I think in the majority.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Well, that's
and
good to
there
hear.
are some that are reticent. And when you're on
We're being
finance,
polite, aren't we, when we say reticent?
you know, yeah, you know who's not giving you the whole story. You're not getting the whole answer to the question, and but there are some who are just straight up transparent as all get out.
Want to name any, or is that too controversial?
No, I don't think that would be
All right.
helpful.
How would you try to put you on at least
no,
one
I don't
spot
wanna
through
think
the
that
show?
would be helpful. But you know, I know some who I uphold in very high regard.
Yeah.
Because they are so honest, high integrity folks, and they'll tell it like it is. Well, thank you very much.
We like the words "tell it like it is."
Yes, there you go. Because now it helps make a decision upon what's really needed there. So, but it varies. It varies, across, as you'd expect in any organization.
Well, yeah.
I mean, picture you got 45, 46 people coming to you. You're going to get a different story all along the way. And they are influenced. They are certainly influenced by, the governor style and the instructions that the governor has provided.
There would have to be, yeah.
So they kind of follow that too.
Yeah, there would have to be some of that. I mean, especially if people would like to be reappointed, that kind of thing too.
I've enjoyed it immensely. Finances, I think it's the premier committee.
Have you been on that all along?
No, 2 terms, 4 years.
2 terms.
You get to build a relationship with a lot of people in state government. We've got a lot of good folks who are running agencies and departments. We really do, and they're working hard at what they're trying to do.
Well, that's good to hear.
Oh no, they are.
Because I mean, sometimes we read the papers and you want to put your hair
are they
out
always doing
the
best possible thing? No, I think their government's the government can be very bureaucratic. It doesn't think the same way as the private sector, and so that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to change the thinking. Let's be a little bit more creative. Let's be a little bit more innovative.
Do you think that in itself will attract more people like yourself to run for the legislature or to consider working in government somehow?
Kathy, wouldn't you prefer to work in an organization or in a company or in a business where creativity is valued, where your ideas are valued, where innovation is valued, where change is readily accepted? Wouldn't you feel more comfortable? I would.
Positively. I mean, some years back, and now I'm turning back the clock a long time.
Right.
I was, I guess you'd have to call me a contractor to one of the state agencies.
Yes.
And the reason that I was invited to work with them was to try to get a brand new program off the ground and have a lot of new ideas. And within the small agency that I was working, as I said, that's why I was hired, so I got terrific support. But with other agencies that I had to interact with, wow, I mean, there was some pushback like you didn't even want to know about, because they saw it as threatening to their bailiwicks as such, and it was very, very hard to do end runs around them to make things happen sometimes.
I've come to know some state employees in different agencies who. What's the right word to use here? Feel maybe boxed in.
Well, I would think anybody who's very energetic or who has a lot of ideas
and
would.
has a lot of ideas, and
I would think so.
It's sometimes not really what. But let's let that talent loose. Let's let it roar. Let's let those ideas.
Yeah, because sometimes
come on out.
I mean, I don't mean to sound negative.
No.
But sometimes, again, there's that turf protection going on,
that's right.
and people see somebody who's bringing about some changes or trying to create some new things as threatening, and they get. I mean, they really kind of dig in and.
I want to set expectations.
Maybe not publicly fight it, but certainly make it a little more difficult to come about.
One of my side objectives here with this, frankly, is to change expectations.
Yeah.
Expectations. Among state employees, that yes, your ideas, your creativity, your innovation is valued, it's welcomed, and here's one way to vent it, to get it, to let it out, to let it come forward. Boy, this state can be a real engine, and a real example, for other states.
We have the talent.
We do a lot of things well. There's no question about it.
Yeah, we have the talent.
Our budget process is great.
And we have the Yankee way of thinking that don't just blow money.
Yeah.
Now, believe it or not, we are like in the end zone here time-wise. I'm kind of craning because the clock is
all right
on the other side of some equipment. So if people see me going like this, I'm really not doing an Igor impression.
All right.
I opened the show saying we knew that there'd be at least 3 big hot topics in 2014. And again, they're back again. Medicaid expansion, an increase in the state gas tax, and expanded gambling are all going to be back on the burner.
Right.
And obviously there's going to be some battles. Do you see other big issues this year, and is there anything you want to comment on? Or, because I'm going to kind of use most of the time now to let you close, anything you think people should be doing, including with your own legislation?
I guess the two things that come to mind. You mentioned the gas tax.
Yeah.
And yes, that's it's going
to be back.
That hits a nerve with me personally.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people.
Yes. Yeah. In this last year, I did put forward an amendment to increase the gas tax. Mm-hmm. The initial proposal by a representative from Nashua I thought was grossly too high.
Yes, it was, John.
But we do, in fact, have a real need from a roadway, bridge,
transportation funding.
From a transportation network point of view, we really do. So I had proposed a much smaller one. It didn't make it. And I made that proposal. What drove me to that was my interest in the state's economy and growing the state's economy. And a good, strong, solid infrastructure helps attract businesses here. So that was my primary motivation. There's another bill coming back this year, sponsored, I believe, by Senator Roush. I happen to be a co-sponsor on it. It needs some work. So we'll see what happens with that. One of the problems with the gas tax, Kathy, is some of the monies collected from it go to different.
I know. They get diverted. I know.
Places. So somehow, how do we solve that? If we take that money, if we don't have that money go to them, well, then where are they going to? Where else is that department or agency going to get the funds that has gotten passed on the gas tax? So we're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place there. I think there needs to be some movement on it.
Language to dedicate funds.
Yeah, we haven't. Last time we had an increase was when, in 1991?
Long time, yeah.
Wow, 23 years ago. The other thing that's going to be a big topic this year is the repeal of the death penalty.
Oh, yeah.
I happen to be a co-sponsor on that bill.
But that will not affect Addison, correct?
No, not at all.
Good. And for those of you who forget, yes. Addison was the person who murdered Officer Briggs in Manchester.
Right, yeah. No, that would not do that. But,
Good.
No, so that's a whole nother subject. So there'll be a lot on that. Gambling.
Yes,
you know,
back.
I'm not a supporter of that. I believe there are other ways to generate revenue, but
well, I'm sure there'll be a very spirited battle once again.
I don't think that's the New Hampshire way.
I agree with you.
No,
and I don't like the legislation that has received some committee support to bring Beano into the state either. That could be a whole subject of another show.
Oh, I hadn't heard about that one.
Oh, well, we'll talk afterwards.
All right, okay.
All right, John, believe it or not, we are down to literally 10 seconds, so I want to thank you.
You have been so kind.
Oh, well, you have been great being here.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. And we'll get you back once the session gets rolling.
Okay.
Everybody, I don't know about for you, but the hour for me flew. But the big message to come out of this with is that we have a state legislator right here from Bedford who's really trying to make a difference and keep track of that legislation and make the appropriate phone calls when it comes to that.
Yes.
And we'll remind you here on this show as well. Meanwhile, there'll be other things to watch too, so don't be afraid to pick up the phone to call John or our other state legislators from Bedford who'd be willing to hear from you, and those of you outside of Bedford to your legislators as well. It'll be a big year. There'll be some momentous decisions, and we will keep talking about them. We will keep telling it like it is. Thanks for watching this time. See you soon. Great holidays, everybody. Bye-bye.